Coney Island, Brooklyn. April 15, 1931. 3:30 in the afternoon. 5 men step through the door of Nuova Villa Tamaro, a quiet Italian restaurant on West 15th Street. Inside, Giuseppe Masseria sits at a table, a bottle of wine half empty, cards scattered before him. Known as Joe the Boss, Masseria is the old-world mafia chief, the man who controls Manhattan. He's finishing lunch with a young associate, Charles Luciano, when he notices nothing out of the ordinary. Luciano rises, excusing himself to the men's room. Then the front door bursts open. 4 men enter, no masks, no hesitation. They move with lethal precision toward Masseria's table. The old boss reacts, hand reaching for his waist, but it's too late. Gunfire erupts. 20 shots ring out. 6 bullets find their mark. Masseria collapses forward, face pressed against the checkered floor. An ace of spades flutters to the ground near his hand. Blood spreads across the tiles. In less than 40 seconds, the shooters are gone, slipping into a waiting car, leaving only silence in their wake. By 3:45 p.m., police arrive. Luciano returns from the bathroom. He claims he saw nothing, heard nothing. No witnesses come forward. Detectives question him for 6 hours. His story never changes. Within a week, the case goes cold. Among those believed to have pulled the trigger that day were names destined to echo through the annals of organized crime: Vito Genovese, Albert Anastasia, Joe Adonis, Bugsy Siegel. All loyal to Luciano, all instrumental in ending the Castellamarese War, a bloody conflict that had already claimed dozens of lives across New York. At just 24 years old, Charles Luciano emerges as the new boss. Genovese becomes his underboss, the man who would act without question, the enforcer capable of doing what Luciano commanded. But power comes at a cost. Luciano is soon convicted on 62 counts of compulsory prostitution. Special Prosecutor Thomas E. Dewey, the same man determined to take down New York's untouchable mob bosses, labels him Public Enemy Number 1. Over 4 grueling weeks, 60 witnesses testify, mostly women, madams, and claimants who insist Luciano ran a citywide vice empire. Luciano denies it all. He insists he never ran brothels, never forced a woman into prostitution. The evidence is circumstantial. The witnesses are unreliable. But Dewey needs a conviction, a message to the world that even the untouchable can be held accountable. On July 18, 1936, Luciano is sentenced to 30 to 50 years. He is sent to Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, Siberia, reporters call it, 300 miles north of New York, near the Canadian border. Iron bars, stone walls, and freezing temperatures in winter become his new world. Vito Genovese steps in as acting boss. Twice a month he visits Luciano, bringing updates and messages from the Mafia Commission. Loyal, ruthless, capable Genovese seems the perfect surrogate. Yet danger looms. Charges arise against him for the murder of Ferdinand Boccia, a small-time hood killed over a gambling dispute. Witnesses step forward. Prosecutors prepare an indictment. Genovese flees to Italy, aligning himself with Mussolini's regime while waiting for the storm to pass. In his absence, Frank Costello rises. Smooth, calculating, politically connected, Costello prefers negotiation over bloodshed. He maintains alliances with other families, the Tammany Hall politicians, and legitimate businessmen. Luciano may be behind bars, but under Costello and Meyer Lansky, the financial mastermind and longtime friend, the family thrives. Gambling, labor rackets, and money flow, even as Luciano remains boss in name only. Then the world changes. The United States enters World War II. Naval intelligence fears sabotage along the New York waterfront. German U-boats prowl the Atlantic. The luxury liner Normandy burns and capsizes at Pier 88. Authorities scramble. They need someone who controls the docks, someone who commands the unions, someone like Charles Luciano. Naval officers visit Dannemora. They offer a deal. Luciano helps secure the waterfront, aids preparations for the invasion of Sicily, and in return, his cooperation could lead to early release. Luciano agrees. He provides names, makes introductions, and ensures the longshoremen's cooperation. The docks are safe. No further sabotage occurs. After the war, his lawyers petition Governor Thomas Dewey for clemency. Dewey, the same man who sent him to prison, now faces a political dilemma. Grant clemency to America's most notorious gangster, or ignore the service he rendered. January 3, 1946. Dewey commutes Luciano's sentence, but on one condition: immediate deportation to Italy, no return, ever. On February 9, 1946, Luciano boards the SS Laura Keene. Reporters crowd the dock, cameras flashing. Luciano, dark overcoat, fedora low, waves once before disappearing below deck. But Luciano has no intention of staying in Italy. Luciano arrives in Havana, just 90 miles from Florida, close enough to control operations, far enough to avoid immediate deportation. Meyer Lansky arranges everything: a suite at the Hotel Nacional, meetings with Cuban officials, protection from President Ramon Grau San Martin's government. December 20, 1946. The Havana Conference begins. Mob bosses from across America fly to Cuba: Frank Costello, Meyer Lansky, Joe Bonanno, Tommy Lucchese, Carlos Marcello, Santos Traficante. Even Frank Sinatra performs at the hotel, a cover for the real purpose of the gathering. Luciano presides over the meeting, discusses family territories, settles disputes, makes decisions about narcotics trafficking. Some bosses want to expand drug operations. Others, including Luciano and Lansky, worry about federal heat. Then Vito Genovese arrives. He returned from Italy in 1945 after witnesses in his murder case conveniently died. He walks into the hotel conference room like he never left. Greets Luciano. Shakes hands with Costello. But something has changed. Genovese wants more than a seat at the table. He wants his family back. February 1947. United States narcotics agents learn Luciano is in Cuba. They pressure the Cuban government, threaten to cut off medical supplies. Cuba needs American support. President Grau has no choice. February 23, 1947. Cuban police escort Luciano to a cargo ship bound for Italy. He protests, tries to bribe officials. Nothing works. The ship leaves Havana harbor. Luciano watches Cuba disappear behind him. He will never set foot in the Western Hemisphere again. Frank Costello remains boss. Meyer Lansky handles the money. The family continues operating without Luciano's physical presence. New York, Manhattan. May 2, 1957. 11 p.m. Frank Costello returns to his apartment building at the Majestic on Central Park West. The doorman nods as he passes. Costello moves through the lobby toward the elevator, unaware of the shadow that follows. A man in a dark coat steps in beside him. In a heartbeat, a revolver is drawn, aimed directly at Costello's head. "This is for you, Frank," the gunman shouts. Costello reacts, but the shot comes anyway. One bullet grazes his scalp. Blood drips down his face as he collapses against the elevator wall. The shooter disappears into the night, running through the lobby, out the front door, and into a waiting Cadillac. Costello survives, but he says nothing. He saw nothing, he tells the police. Yet investigators know who fired the gun: Vincent Gigante, a soldier in the Genovese family. The message is clear. Vito Genovese wants control. After 10 years of watching Costello run the family he once led, Genovese decides it's time to take it back, by force. Costello understands. Within weeks, he announces his retirement, stepping down as boss. He tells his associates he wants to live. And, just like that, Genovese assumes leadership of the family once more. But power comes with challenges. Albert Anastasia, a loyal ally of Costello and Luciano, stands in Genovese's way. The man who once built Murder Inc., supervising hundreds of hits across the 1930s and 40s, is no ordinary adversary. Genovese needs a plan. He forms an alliance with Carlo Gambino, Anastasia's underboss, who has his own ambitions. Together, they arrange Anastasia's murder. Gambino becomes boss, and Genovese consolidates power. The day of the hit arrives. Albert Anastasia enters the barbershop at the Park Sheraton Hotel, 877th Avenue. He removes his jacket, sits in chair number 4, and relaxes as the barber drapes a white cloth over him. Hot towels are prepared. Then the shooters enter. 2 men, scarves over their faces, revolvers in hand. The barber sees them, drops his scissors, and flees to the back room. Anastasia sits with his eyes closed, completely unaware. Gunfire erupts. 10 shots. 5 bullets strike Anastasia in the head and back. He lurches forward, tries to stand, but collapses to the floor. Blood stains the white tiles, the chair, the mirrors. The killers walk out the front door into a waiting car. Gone before police arrive, no arrests, no witnesses. The Gambino family is born, and Genovese's dominance is secure, at least for the moment. Yet recognition is still needed. The other families must acknowledge his power. So Genovese calls a meeting. Joseph Barbara owns a sprawling 58-acre estate at 625 McFall Road. A stone mansion, secluded and private. The perfect venue for a secret gathering. Barbara's wife, in on the plan, leaves 2 days prior. She buys steaks, soda, whiskey, enough for 100 men, and checks into a hotel, told not to return until the meeting is over. November 14th, Cadillacs, Lincolns, Chryslers roll in from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, California. By morning, the driveway is packed, a surreal sight in a rural town where most residents drive pickup trucks. Inside, 58 of the most powerful mob bosses in America gather: Vito Genovese, Carlo Gambino, Joe Bonanno, Sam Giancana, Santos Trafficante, Russell Bufalino, Joseph Profaci, Tommy Lucchese, names that define organized crime in the United States. Genovese opens the meeting. He wants to discuss narcotics trafficking, territory disputes, and his claim as boss of bosses. Some nod in agreement, others remain skeptical. Tension simmers. By 12:40 p.m., New York State Police Sergeant Edgar Croswell drives past Barbara's estate. Something feels off. The cars, the plates, the unfamiliar faces, it all clicks. He radios for backup. At 1 p.m., troopers set up roadblocks. Police converge on the estate. Inside, chaos erupts. Shouts fill the mansion. Men flee in every direction, toward cars, into the woods, over fences. Expensive suits and polished shoes stumble through fields, hide behind trees, crawl through underbrush. The police stop cars at roadblocks. Known criminals are arrested. Others vanish into the countryside. Genovese and Gambino are stopped, taken into custody, questioned for hours. The Appalachian meeting becomes front-page news. The existence of a national crime syndicate is now undeniable. The FBI, long dismissive of organized crime, is embarrassed. Genovese's dream of bosses is crushed. The commission blames him. The other families seethe. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Lucky Luciano reads about Appalachian. He makes calls to Meyer Lansky in Miami, to Frank Costello in New York. They discuss Genovese, the chaos he has sown, the instability he represents. Luciano never trusted Genovese, not after fleeing to Italy in 1937, not after cozying up to Mussolini during the war, not after the power grab of 1957. Luciano, Lansky, and Costello had built something lasting. The Commission, the National Crime Syndicate, 25 years of fragile peace. Genovese threatens it all. They decide he must be stopped. Not with bullets. That would ignite a war. They need something permanent, something Genovese cannot resist. They choose drugs. Federal narcotics agents arrange a shipment from Europe to New York, heroin, a deal Genovese cannot ignore. Nelson Cantellops, a small-time Puerto Rican dealer with ties to Genovese's men, is placed at the center. Everything is monitored, every conversation recorded, every move tracked. And then Cantellops flips. He agrees to testify. Why would a street-level dealer risk everything to betray a mafia boss? Because someone powerful, someone patient, someone with unlimited resources made it worth the risk. Someone determined to see Vito Genovese behind bars. And for the first time, Genovese realizes power can be taken, even without a single bullet fired. New York Federal Court. January 14, 1958. Federal agents arrest Vito Genovese at his home in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. They charge him with conspiracy to import and distribute narcotics. 23 others are indicted with him: Vincent Gigante, Carmine Galante, Natale Ivola, top members of the Genovese family. Genovese posts bail, hires the best defense attorneys, prepares for trial. He knows the charges are serious. Narcotics convictions carry mandatory sentences, no parole, no early release. The trial begins in March 1959. Federal prosecutors present their case. Nelson Cantellops takes the stand. He testifies for 3 days. Names names. Describes meetings. Details drug transactions. Claims he met personally with Vito Genovese to discuss heroin shipments. Defense attorneys attack his credibility, point out his criminal record, his history of lying to police, the fact that a low-level Puerto Rican drug dealer would never have access to a boss of Genovese's stature. The prosecution knows this, but they have corroborating witnesses. They have wiretaps. They have surveillance records. What they really have is information fed to Cantellops by people who know the organization inside and out. Details only insiders would know. Meeting locations, code words, names of intermediaries. Someone has given Cantellops a roadmap through the Genovese family structure. Someone with intimate knowledge of how Vito Genovese operates. April 4, 1959. The jury returns guilty verdicts. Vito Genovese is convicted on all counts. Vincent Gigante is acquitted. 14 others are convicted with Genovese. April 17, 1959. Federal Judge Thomas Murphy sentences Genovese to 15 years in federal prison. Genovese shows no emotion. He stares at the judge, then at the prosecutors. He knows he has been set up. He knows who did it. Meyer Lansky celebrates quietly in Miami. Frank Costello breathes easier in New York. In Italy, Lucky Luciano receives the news. He says nothing to associates, makes no public statements. But those close to him notice his satisfaction. The man who helped build Luciano's empire is going to prison. The man who pulled the trigger on Joe Masseria in 1931. The man who became underboss when Luciano was boss. The man who was supposed to be loyal. He will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Genovese appeals his conviction, claims the trial was unfair, claims witnesses were paid to lie. His attorneys file motion after motion. All are denied. The conviction stands. Atlanta, Georgia. Federal Penitentiary. May 1959. Vito Genovese arrives at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. He continues running his family from inside, sends messages through visitors, makes decisions about family business. But his power is limited. He cannot attend meetings, cannot enforce discipline personally, cannot prevent rivals from making moves.